Alright, how you doing? In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an editable text box that has the OnFocusReceived overridden function. I found that when I was using an editable text box in my projects, I needed to run certain code when the text box was focused, but I couldn't get the OnFocusReceived function to run, and the reason for that I found is that the OnFocusReceived runs on the main widget, not the actual text box itself. So what I have done is I have created a user widget that I have called UIEditableTextEx, and I have implemented all the code that I needed to run for the project that I was doing, and I'll show you how to do that just now. So you create a new project. It can be a blank project or it can be a first person template or whatever, but it's Blueprint, it's not C++. And you set it up as follows. In fact, I'll just quickly do that. So, new project, I'm using 4.27. Blank project is fine. Blueprint, whatever. Disabled ray tracing, desktop console, no starter content. And put it wherever you want to and call it whatever you want. So I'll just call this test project 2. I think the one I've done is test project 1. So create project. I'm not actually going to rewrite all the code because there's quite a lot of it. So I'll just open the project, show you how to get it set up, and then go back to the one I've already done and just show you the code and explain it rather than doing it myself. So we want to create a user interface widget blueprint called UITest. That's the main one that's going to be displayed in the window. And a second one called UIEditableTextEx. And that's the one we're going to make the EditableTextEx extended editable itself. So if you hit save, you're going to have to create a new level. So I usually call it LVL main. So LVL main, and then that's there. Save. And what you want to do is go to your project settings to make sure the level LVL main is the one that opens. You don't have to do this if you're just implementing it in another project, but just to show you how it works. Maps and modes, and then default maps, editor startup map LVL main, and game default map LVL main, and that's all you need to do there. Go into open level blueprint, and here we'll set UI test as the startup blueprint. You can delete these two things, and we want event begin play and create widget. There is it. Create widget. Owning player can be set to get player controller. Set class to UI test, and then return value goes to add to viewport. And there's a couple other things as well I like to set. Coming out of there, we have set show mouse untick context sensitive, set show mouse to true, cursor to true, and that takes the player controller as well. And then we want set input, set input mode to UI only, and that takes the player controller too. So there we go. So that's that, and that means when you hit play, just set it to new editor window. When you hit play, that's UI test, although there's nothing in UI test just now, so you can't see anything. So I'll just quickly change that. Double click on UI test. I always like to go to window, developer tools, widget reflector, change that value to 1.15. You can get a bit bigger. So if I just put in a button into the canvas panel, all I'm doing is showing you that UI test starts when you hit the game, and there's the button there. So that is working. So I'll go back to the project that I created earlier, so I don't have to do it all again. which was that one. And there's a lot of code that you won't need if you're just needing OnFocusReceived. So I'll do OnFocusReceived first and set text. Those are the two sort of main ones, and you can just go with that, or everything else you can wait and see. So okay, so I have created a fault there because for some reason Roboto, the standard UE4 font, didn't appear in my game, didn't appear in this editor. So just a standard font I'd created. Roboto should be there for you, but if it's not, then you'll have to get one. You can get one off anything or whatever. What you do is you go into the UIEditableTextEx, and what we're going to do is you delete the canvas panel, so there should be nothing there, and you put in a border and edit main. I'll just do it to show you. So UIEditableTextEx2. So you delete the canvas panel, and we'll want a border. Now the reason we're putting a border in is because there's actually a problem with the editable text. You cannot set the font color. So what you do is you set the font color in the edit to an opacity of 0, and then you set the content color of the border to whatever color you want. So in the border you go into content color and opacity, and you set that color to whatever you want. That's blue. And then the normal colored brush color you set the alpha channel to 0, so it looks like there's nothing there. Now if you put text in there, it will be blue because the content's blue. So you then get your edit box, editable text. In the editable text multi-line, you can set the font color, so you don't have to do this with that. So the editable text will rename to edit main, rename border to BRDR main. Compile. We want the border to have its variable set so it can be accessed in the graph. Edit main, we'll put a default text value in, just the word default, and we will set the font. See, it's come up none there, so Roboto should be there in yours. I don't know why it's not there, so I've just put in my font, set the size to 24, compile, maybe a bit bigger than that, 32. Okay, so 32. Now the reason it's so big there is just because it's automatically fitted to screen, but because you've taken the canvas panel out, it will simply fill the space that it's given in your UI. So if you put it in a component that's 100 pixels long and 50 high, it will fill that, it will be that size. So the other thing we want to do is set the visibility. Now this is how you manage it. You go to this is how you set up the OnFocusReceived. You go to the UIEditableTextEx to component widget and set the visibility to visible and IsFocusable to true. Border has to be visible, it's actually not important, and edit should be not hit testable. Self only. And that's what you do there. So once you've got that set up, you can then start writing the code. So I'll go back to the previous project. Here we have the text. I have actually put that in a scale box, so I shall explain later, but so don't worry about that. The size doesn't matter there. You go into the graph and you want to do two things. You want to go to functions, override, and hit OnFocusReceived, and I've already done it. So here is the function here, and you simply do three things. You add set visibility, and it should say edit main there. Set visibility of the edit box to visible. Then you set focus of the edit box, editable text. And then you call the event dispatcher, which we will now create. So go down to event dispatcher, and create an event dispatcher called OnFocusReceived Event Dispatcher, and you just drag it in, hit call, and connect it up that way. Remember to create an event reply for the return node, and that's all you have to do for OnFocusReceived. So one other thing you should do here is create a variable called text of text type and make it instance editable so it can be accessed from the other blueprint. Give it a default value and then go into, and that's that basically set up for OnFocusReceived. Go into your main widget, and what you want to do is create an instance of your new user widget, place it anywhere you want, and you want to have one button that has set text that you're going to apply the text to the user widget, and that editable text box that will pick up the text that you can enter the text you want to apply. So if we go to the onClicked event for that button, all you do is you drag in the variable for your user widget, and there's two ways to do it. You can just, because the text variable is instance editable, you can just type in text, and there it is, get text and set text. You can do it that way. Oh, sorry, there's one thing to note. Go back to the designer and go to the edit box and the text property in the content window and bind it to the text variable, and that way whatever you change the variable to will be applied to the text property. And you can do it that way, but what I also did, and I find a better way, is go back into the event graph of the user widget and create a function called setText, fn setText. And all that does is you take the input to the function has an input. This is a text variable there. You click that button there and you give it a name, and then you set the value, and then you get the edit box object, drag off a pin and type in setText. That's that there. The text from the input goes into the in-text parameter, and that's all you need to do. And remember, this edit box is not accessible from your other widget, but the instance editable variable is. So what you want to do is just set that variable to whatever you set, whatever comes on the input to this function, and that's all you need to do for that code. So then back to the UI test, you just drag off a pin from the user widget object, type in the name of the function, which is setText, and then pass in whatever text you want, which in this case is just the text from an editable text box, and that's all you need to do to set the text. So let's try that. Hit play. If I click on default, it gets focus received. Sorry, I'll just explain that. Yes. So if you go to in the graph, click on the UIEditableTextEx object, and because you set an event dispatcher in the user widget, that function now appears. That event now appears there, and you just click on that, and it takes you to the code. And all you do is you just put your code after that. So anytime focus is received on the user widget, the visibility of the edit box is set to visible, the focus is set to it, and now automatically you can type into the edit box, and then it runs that event dispatcher, which runs this. So you can put any code you want there, but all I've done is a print string with focus received. There is one thing I forgot to add into this code, and that's to reset the visibility of the edit box once you're finished. And the way you do that is, we'll just do it now because I haven't actually done it. Go to the edit, you're in the user widget, UIEditableTextEx, go to the edit box and on text, so on text committed, and you want another event dispatcher, on text committed event dispatcher, and you could do one for on text changed as well, actually, because that's a useful that would be useful to have as well. So just duplicate that event dispatcher. It's not going to give me that option, so create another one. On text changed event dispatcher. Call, and there is two ways you can do this. You can have, you would want to set the variable, the text variable anyway. And then run the event dispatcher. Because that variable is publicly accessible to the other widget, which means you can get the value of the text through that variable. So the variable is set whenever that fires. So that's fine. So then you can go into UI test and click on the user widget object, and then you have two new event dispatchers, on text committed and on text changed. And so whenever you type into the, what we could just do that, we'll just do a print string for the value of the text that you're entering into the edit box. And so when you type into this edit box, every time you enter a new character, it should focus received. There you go. So on text changed, that event is now accessible in your main UI. And the same would be, it would be the same. We can just take that off and put it up to on text committed, which is the same, but when you finish typing text, that will fire. So there's on focus received, and then blah blah blah, and then when you hit enter, there we go. So that is how you get those two events accessible in your main widget. So we will go back to this one. We're doing set text on clicked, and so there you go. So any text that I put in here, you can then hit set text and is passed into the editable text box of the user widget, and that's how you do that. So set text is done, on focus received is done. That's what I was going to do. Once you lose focus, once you move away from the editable text box, you want to reset the visibility of the edit box back to not testable, and you want to do that, I think, on text committed. So after the dispatcher's called, in fact you could do it before that, it's probably best. Set visibility to not hit testable of the edit box. That should then work. So focus received, right, and then it's not. I haven't set up a printer string for the focus of the main widget, but that does work. I have updated it. So on focus received sets the text. Sorry, on text committed sets the text to the internal variable, sets the visibility. Have I put that on committed? Yes, sets the visibility of the edit box back to not testable, resets the sort of setup back to what it was, and then runs that event dispatcher. So that is how you create a user widget that gives an editable text box on focus received. So if that's all you want to do, then you could finish it there. There is a few other things: IsPassword, IsReadOnly, justify, set color, and set size. Size is an interesting one, so we'll do that last. Basically, the process is exactly the same for everything. If you have a property of the edit box that is bindable to a variable, then you can do it as we did with text. You can create a function or you can bind it to a variable. If it's not bindable to a variable, you have to use a function. So the next one we'll do is IsPassword and IsReadOnly, and they're both exactly the same, and it's just two Boolean variables, IsPassword and IsReadOnly, both set false to start with because that's the default value, and instance editable, so that again accessible in the main UI. And what you do is IsPassword we'll do first. Unclicked. The only code you need there is that and that. I've done a flip-flop so you can see it going back and forward between true and false and a print string to get the value. But the fn set IsPassword is an internal function in the user widget, which is there, and that's all it is. Function comes in, it takes a Boolean variable, and it uses the internal function set IsPassword for the editable text box, apply that to the edit main, and then set the variable so it can be accessed. And it's the same for read-only. Where is it? Exactly the same for read-only. And there you go. So once you've got that code, you then can use the code there is exactly the same. Flip-flop to set true, the second hit set false, and then a print string that just gets the current value for that variable and prints it on the screen. So IsPassword, and obviously the font I'm using is a homemade font, so it doesn't have the password character. That's why you're getting that. True, false, true, false, true, false. Read only. True, false, true, false, true, false. And that's how you do that code. So justify, again, into set a function in the user widget. You get the set justification property of the edit box, which is different from the variable that I've created. Again, it's a variable, it's an enum of type eText justify that is set instance editable. I should really change that to justify to distinguish between the two. So set justification is internal to the edit box, it's a property internal to the edit box, and justify there is an actual variable I've created. So this sets the justification of the edit box, and this is a variable that I can access to see what value has been set. So into that's the function fn set justify or set justification into the main UI, compile, and justify on click. Now what I've done here is you take the user widget object, we'll just do it actually. User widget object, type in name of the variable, get or set justify, and then you do a switch on the type of enum. And then for each one, you just move on one. So on left, you set the justification to center using that function we just created. On center, you set it to right, and on right, you set it to left. And that's how you do it. So starting it, this is the thing up there. Justify. Oh, it needs to be off focus. So I had a little problem there with the justify. I did that code and then I added in a scale box, which changed it a wee bit. So in the scale box in the user widget, you have to change the stretch to fit. It was on stretch to fit first of all, as you may have seen, so you change that to fit, and then your justify does then work. But also one thing to note, the size of the user widget that you've created, if you put it on size to content, justification doesn't work because there's nowhere for the text to move. So that has to be off as well, and the size of the object, the size of the control has to be big enough so that justification has space to move. So that's that. So moving on. Justification works. Set color now. So font color. As I say, it was difficult to find out how to do this. I couldn't get it to work. So what I've done is if you go into the user widget, into event graph, we've got a function fn set font color, and all you do is you set content color and opacity of the border, not the edit box, because remember we set the brush color of the edit box to have a alpha channel of 0 and the content color to be the color, and then anything within that border then becomes that color, which is why you get yellow text there. So all you do is in your main UI, show you the code, it's same as everything else. UIEditableTextEx object, get the fn set font color, and then you get the border, get brush color, and then pass it. Oh no, sorry, you're just getting the color there of a border, an extra border that I've created, and passing it into the function. So play that. That's the border there that I've created. I've made it blue. Set color goes blue. We'll just go back to the designer. Go here. This is a separate border. We'll make it red or peach or whatever it is. Back in, and now different colour, and there you go. And that's how you set the colour. You're actually setting the colour of the border not the text. So size was a little bit difficult, and so I've managed to fudge this a wee bit, but it's not really the way I would have wanted to have done it. So into the user widget, you put your border and your edit box, which is within your border, into a scale box. So just type in scale. Spell that right, spell it atrocious. There you go, one of those, and you just put it in. So you're actually going to scale up the entire thing rather than increasing the size of the font. Now, if you're only changing it a wee bit, it should be okay. If you're going to make it massive, you probably notice pixelation and stuff like that. So it'll work, it'll be good enough, but it's not perfect. So scale box, as I said, we set to fit, not hit testable, and that's enough there. Yes. So then into event graph, we have set font scale, and you have an input that takes a float as a parameter. You get the scale box and the current, you get user specified scale, multiply that to the factor that's coming in as an input to the function, set that to an internal variable scale factor, which is always as a float, but it's instance editable, and then you set render scale, not set user specified scale, because that doesn't seem to work. Set render scale for the scale box. Now, if you type in set scale, rather than that one word, set user specified scale didn't seem to work, but set render scale did, and it comes up with that there with a X and Y coordinate thing. You just right click on that and split, and it gives you two floats. And you can do it you can give different values to X and Y, but if you just want to scale up, you can give them both. So that's the code there for the set font scale function. Back into your main UI, set size, unclicked, and there you go. I've got an edit box which just has a number in it, so you get the text which comes as a text, can't change that to float, change it to string, then to float, and then set font scale to the UIEditableTextEx object. You'd want to validate that it's a number, but that's it. So open up. It's now, I think the font size, I think was like 42 or 32 or something I said just now. But as I say, you're not setting the font here, you're scaling it from what it is. So the scale factor just now is 1. So if I scale up on the number 12, it's going to be a scale factor of 12, which is so big it's not on screen anymore. So I put that down to 1.5, and there you go. 1, back to normal, 2.5, and as you can see, it's moving around, so it's not perfect, but you could incorporate that in. I'll have to have a look at that again and see if I can get it to work. So set text, IsPassword, IsReadOnly, justify, set color, and there you go. That's your basic properties that you would want in an edit box that now has focus received. So there was one other thing I set up on OnKeyDown as well. So it's actually on, I couldn't get OnKeyDown to work, but I got OnPreviewKeyDown to work. So it's just an overridable function as OnKeyDown is. You go into the code, you've got a event dispatcher, OnPreviewKeyDown dispatcher, and that's the only thing that it does. But the input takes an in-key event, which is OnPreviewKeyDown, and the return value, sorry, the event dispatcher takes a key event. So therefore, when you press a key, or you can put the following code to check what value of key is in that function if you want, but I kept that out the function. So in here you then have the OnPreviewKeyDown event dispatcher here, and what you do is it's a key event, so you get key first of all, then you check which value, A, B, C, D, or whatever, and if that's all you want, you just branch. If it's true, you put code in, or you can do a second branch and is control down. There's is left control down and is right control down, or is control down is both of them, which takes the press key event. And so you've got two branches. I've got letter A there, capital A, so if it's capital A it's true, if it's not capital A you do code there. If it's capital A and controls down, then you run your code there. So I'll change that to A because that's going to select all. I'll change that to B because that's going to select all in the edit box. So control B. So play. So focus received, and if I do control B, control A, I didn't change the print screen text, control A pressed there. So that's how you do on preview key down as well. And that's that. just change that because that's annoying me. Focus received, Control B, and press a few more keys, and it's not firing. So there you go. So that is a few simple properties, useful functions that you can create in a user widget that gives you OnFocusReceived, OnPreviewKeyDown, and such like in your edit box. So there you go. So I think that's everything I wanted to show you. I hope that was useful. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to start doing a few more videos just explaining a few things that I've worked out that might be quite useful to other people. So I hope that's useful to you. Thank you for watching, and until next time, see you later.